Rogash from MPW Performance and Race Fab down in Keysborough, Victoria. This video is to celebrate the unveil of our new Capri. So this Capri is dubbed Strip Show. The reason for that, for you guys who don't know us or what we've done in the past, I had a VT Commodore all dressed up as a VX Club Sport, which went 780 at 180 mile an hour, and that was no show. Then I went over to a twin turbo based VK Group A Blue Meanie, and that is all show. And that car's gone 750 at 190 mile an hour, twin turbo LS 427Q. We decided it's time to step it up. So basically over COVID, we put a lot of money back into tooling and everything in the shop. We couldn't get parts, we had trouble getting supply of things. So we decided to start doing a lot of things in-house. So we put in chassis tables, big weld tables, new welders, new folding equipment, CNC plasmas, 3D scanners, basically everything we need to go front to back of the car. So this was our example of us building a car front to back in-house. The plan for this, everybody asks, what do we hope to get out of this and where do we want to be? Basically, eventually I'd like to run a mid-6 at over 200 mile an hour out of this car would be perfect. Obviously that's going to take some doing. 100-inch wheelbase is going to be pretty hard to get down the track, but look, we have the right team behind us to make all of that happen. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to go through, and my wife and kids are going to ask some questions about this car. So they helped me build the car. Over the last 6 months, all of our family time has been spent in the workshop or in this shed trying to get this car together. So they're going to ask me some questions about why we chose different things for the car, what we've put in it, give you guys a rundown on what the car actually is and what we're running in it. So before we get stuck into that and all the boring talk and everything and you guys lose interest, I want to put a huge thanks to Chris Cuttajar. Out of everybody that has helped on this car, he has been there basically every weekend. I get a phone call every second day. As I said, we've done all of this after hours. None of it's been done during work hours, as we've got a lot of customers' jobs to get on top of. So what Chris hasn't helped in physical work, he's been there as mental support. So as I said, he's kept me pushing. Try and get a 596 cube twin turbo big block into a Capri and keep it on that borderline of being engineered, and it's a hard job. So I've thrown my toys out of the cot quite a few times throughout this build. I'm sure Kelly agrees with that. But Chris has been there to help out, so huge thanks to Chriso. I must go ahead and thank Frank from Dandy Engines as well. Frank has shown a lot of interest in the car. He's been there to A, help me source the motor, B, help me source the transmission, and just model support along the way. We've got Jamie from Raceworks. So the whole car is plumbed up front to back using Raceworks fittings and Premier Auto Trade parts. Now, Jamie is local to Melbourne. He's just around the corner from my shop. We would call him, and at 8 o'clock at night, on his way home from work, he was dropping parts into the shop. If he didn't have them, they were getting drop shipped the next day from wherever they were coming from. And we managed to get this thing through on a tight deadline. So huge thanks to Jamie and the Raceworks team as well. Scotty Cortina at Gazard Brothers, we're running his shocks on all four corners. Again, huge thanks to Scotty for looking after us, getting us shocks down and springs. Now, that's about the point where I say none of this is about money. These guys haven't gone into their pockets and thrown out. It is the extra support that I get from having such good relationships with all of these guys. So Scotty Cortina, we needed parts, they were there. Same as Raceworks, same as Frank at Dandy, same as everyone that we've used. Cameron at Rosebud Panels, we'll get more in depth about him soon, but huge thank you. The guy knocked it out of the park. He's a one-man band down there in Rosebud, and I think the car speaks for itself. We've got all of the MPW guys, so Abe and Joey especially, mate, they have knocked this out of the park. They've donated their own time and been working around the clock to help us out as well. James at Pulsar Turbo, huge thank you to him as well. Gave us a big choice. We'll get more into that later on, but gave us a choice of whatever we needed out of them guys and got the perfect turbo for the job over. We've got all the guys at Racer Industries, especially Richard, really helping out and being in the circuit car field. We've learnt a lot of different ways to do things. Instead of where we just used to use certain parts, we found other parts that we can use, which we found slightly better. But we'll get more into that a little bit later as well. So we've got Haltech. Again, we'll get into Haltech, but a personal thanks to Matt Whiting and Scott Hilsinger from Haltech. Absolute awesome guys and have been the biggest help on this car. Guys at Turbo Smart, always there. All of the boost control on this car is Turbo Smart gear. Guys at Plasma Man, thanks heaps to Shannon the Ranger. He's, every time we need something like clamps or whatever, they're drop shipped the next day. So Alex, thanks man, awesome intake and awesome clamps and everything on this car. So we'll get into it. There will be people that I forget. We're flying off the seat of our pants at the moment. We haven't written anything down. The girls are just going to ask some questions and we'll see how we go. So what have we read on social media, Cal, that you think needs to be asked?
First question is, how did the idea for the Capri come about?
I would say the idea was yours, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I wanted to do a Fox body Mustang. So after working with Jason Way from Tough Mounts and doing Fox Sake, I fell in love with the Fox body Mustang. So I was looking around, I almost purchased one, and Cal didn't like that platform as much, so Cal fell in love with Paul Hamilton's XA when we took that job on. Cal has always liked old school chrome bumper cars, and when I explained that I wanted to do a smaller car, Cal wanted to do a Kingswood, so we were looking at HKTGs at some point, and Cal loves HQs. So we were going to go down that path, which I'm sure we'll still do at some stage, but I wanted to build a smaller car with a big block in it. So Cal's always loved Capris, and this one just managed to pop up. So what made the deal even sweeter was it's an engineered, naturally aspirated big block. So half of the hard work's already done. We still had to keep everything up to spec and go through with that, but we ended up with an engineered big block Capri. When we started the car, it was pretty rough, and I still hold it against Cal for the sleepless nights and extra work we had to do. I don't think the Fox body would have been anywhere near as hard, but we're there and we've got something to show for it. So that's where the Capri come from.
You mentioned the block. Can you tell us about the engine and why you chose that one?
So what happened with the engine was mid-COVID. So everybody asks why it's not a Powerhouse-based engine. Are we still using Johnny at Powerhouse? The answer is yes. So we send a lot of engines to Frankston Engines, Powerhouse Engines, and Dandy Engines. We've got a lot of jobs on at the shop, so we share them around. Now, when I was speaking to Johnny about doing the motor for this, as he does the Engine for All show, we didn't have a block. I didn't want to put an iron block in it, and I decided to call Frank. So when I rang Frank and asked him if he had a block, what his time frame was in putting an engine together for us, and that kind of gear, we basically got told, good luck finding a block. There's none in the country. There's none in existence at the moment. We hung up from Frank. I started thinking, do I just go to an iron block? What do we do? And Frank rang me back. So Frank had an engine that belonged to Darren Mood, which had just come off of the engine dyno, and Darren wanted to go down the path of a 481X. So we ended up with a freshly rebuilt 596 cube, Brodix blocked, big block with some profiler cylinder heads on it. So it's a 10.2 deck height, 596 cubes, profiler cylinder heads, dry sump, Plasma Man intake. I negotiated a deal with Darren. I bought the motor off of him, and that's where all of this started. So we ended up building the Capri around that, basically. And
how was the engine mounted?
So that was a big question that I've read a lot on social media, that you can't have an engine plated car and keep it registered or roadworthy. That's where I rang Jason from Tough Mounts, and the next day I had parts dropped over to me. Huge thanks to Jason, always really beneficial to our team and to all of the jobs we do. Jay sent me over some billet extrusion, I guess you can call it, which we actually welded into the engine plate, and it's got non-thane bushes which go in for street, engineering, roadworthy, all that kind of gear. And then on our race days, we can actually pop 4 bolts out, take the polyurethane bushes out and then put the solid aluminium bushes back in, therefore making it a solid mounted engine. So that gives us everything on this car is a fine line between street and race. And that gives us that fine line that's very easy to change out.
What transmission are we running?
So again, speaking to Frank about what trans they would like to put behind this engine, Frank basically said an M&M is the only choice. So Steve Bazzina had a spare trans, so I ended up purchasing Steve's 2-speed Mark Mickey Turbo 400 off of him. Frank sold us a Mark Mickey or M&M bolt together converter for it, and that coupled everything together quite nicely. Now joining that to the rear end is a GJ Drivelines Carbon Series tail shaft. Now, Anthony and Matt at GJ Drivelines, as soon as I got them a measurement, which is just over 1 metre long, by the way, as soon as I got them a measurement, I had a phone call the next day, come and pick it up, and it was all done for me. So we actually took that, the car was in the paint shop when that got done. I took it over to the paint shop, put it on their scales, and the whole tail shaft, including billet yoke, 1350 uni at the rear, 1350 at the front, weighed 6.12 kilos. So for all of you guys wondering how light carbon tail shafts are, that's where we're at.
We know how much you love turbos, Dad, so what turbo does this one run?
So we've got Pulsar G57 98mm turbos on this. Another question, so why did we run the Pulsars? I've got a really good personal relationship with James, so that was a really good idea for us. We've used them in the shop. We haven't had any failures with them. We've made very good power. We've got lots of proven results from that base turbo. So when we spoke to James, we were wondering how large we went on this turbo. We ended up going down the path of G57 98mm comp wheels.
What management system are we running?
It's a big word for a 9-year-old. So we are running Haltech. Everyone who knows me or knows my workshop knows all of my previous cars. Again, personal relationships with the boys at Haltech. Scotty, Matty Whiting, Richard Schumack, all of the guys down there, and gals with Anna. Look, we've got a very good relationship with those guys. So for me, I didn't put a second thought into it. We've gone with basically everything from the middle of the Haltech catalogue to the end. When we spoke to mainly Matt and Scott and said, look, we're going to be building a new car, it's big block based, this is where we're at. They got pretty excited and they said, look, what's your time frame? We're coming out with some new products. We really want to get them into the car, and it actually all fell into place. So the car's running a Nexus R5 for everything forwards of the pillar and a PD16 for everything rearwards of the pillar. When I say that, headlights, indicators, hazards, obviously, our chute, so when I say our parachute, the parachute handle is all set up on CO2. Our boost control, our engine, 16 injectors, front shock travel sensors, our laser ride height sensor is all ran via a Nexus R5. Everything backwards of that pillar, so tail lights, rear indicators, street fuel pumps, our parachute mechs, so we've got CO2 chutes on here, so our parachute mechs, our rear shock travel sensors, our speed sensors, they're all ran via a PD16. Now that is literally linked together via a CAN cable. So we've got 4 wires running front to back, let us keep everything nice and neat and tidy, and it's all controlled via a CAN keypad. So you'll see, we'll throw some overlaid footage, but it actually has a 3x5 CAN keypad button. We can click through anything we want, indicators, boost up and down, whatever we need to do. Now the really handy thing with doing that is it's not just boost up and down. If we get up to the start line and the guy in front of us blows tyres off, or we end up coming up, say we're racing heads up and we end up next to somebody, the track's on kill, and we can actually step up through our tunes without plugging the laptop into this. So basically what I do is I have 9 different tunes set up in the ECU. I know what each of them is. They progressively get stronger as the number gets higher. I have a telltale on my IC7 dash, and I can just come in and I might go, I'm on tune 4, let's go up to tune 5 or even tune 6 and get the car down the track, or vice versa. The track's gone off, there's just been an oil down. Instead of trying to plug a laptop in while you're staging, literally come back, knock it down a couple of tunes, and we might know, okay, so with All Show, for instance, we know that setting 4 is going to go out and run a 780. Setting 5 is going to be just into the 70s. Setting 6 is into the 60s, given the perfect pass or the perfect world. But as I say, that's how simple it is for us just to change tune-ups in that car.
What rear end are we running?
So, as we described before, this is us showing what we can do in-house with all of our new equipment. So we've got a sheet metal 90